Hey y'all, hey, it's JJ Conway. Welcome to Building Wealth Together, where our goal is to help you walk in abundance and leave a legacy. It's Wealth Building Wednesday, where we answer your money questions with style and grace. To ask your question, go to buildingwealthtogether.com and click Ask JJ or leave a voicemail at 1-833-4-ASK-JJC. Normally we'd answer questions, but today we've got some wealth building teaching instead. Hey everybody, it's JJ Conway. Today I've got a special guest for you. I've got with me Dr. Amina Gilyard James, who is an organization development and inclusion strategist with a passion for helping individuals and organizations transform. She is also the co-founder of Chronicle Lodging and Events, an upcoming suite of B&Bs and inns. And I'm going to tell you why I invited Dr. Amina to be on the program today, because we spoke together at the Future is Now conference about the power of real estate and real estate investing. And when she told me what she's doing with the inns and how she's been structuring her business and how she's been using real estate tangential to her given passion business, I realized that she could inspire so many of you who want to profit from this vehicle of investing, but maybe you're concerned that you have another passion on your heart. So before we get too far into it, Dr. Amina, I want to welcome you today. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, JJ. I'm glad to be here with you and your audience today. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah. You know, anytime we've got people who are doing stuff that are uplifting themselves in the community, I want to be able to highlight that. And I'm not even just saying that because I want to butter you up for a discount the next time I'm in town. But but I do want to talk about the inns and the B&B and the event center and all this kinds of things that you're doing on the real estate side. But before we get into the real estate side, one of the things that I talk about a lot in my real estate investing classes is there's so many different ways to profit with real estate, from real estate, to hold your wealth in real estate. And it's really something for there's really something for every personality. And so one of the things you offer that complements something I offer is the Strength Finders assessment. And I thought maybe before we talk about real estate, you could talk a little bit about finding your strengths, understanding where your strengths lie, and then how that translates to your wealth building capacity.
Sure, JJ, that's a great segue. So the thing about that I love about Gallup Strengths Finder is that it really focuses more on what we do well. So I am a Gallup certified strengths coach, and that basically means that I'm certified to deliver the Strengths Finder assessment to people and then coach them on their results. And in this culture, especially when we think about performing and our 9 to 5, a lot of times, we'll get called in for performance appraisals, this and that, and we'll focus on things we haven't been doing well and what needs to be improved. I've learned throughout my years in business, in my professional life, that I've gotten much further by really focusing on where my natural talents lie. What are my natural inclinations? What do I naturally do well? And I mean, I use that information to really start my current consulting business, where I consult on organizational effectiveness and inclusion. But I also use those same strengths that I learned about using Strengths Finders to start the real estate business and build the Chronicle Lodging and Events brand. It's all about being laser focused on your natural talents and how you can really exercise those talents and turn them into strengths, and productively applying those strengths. So we're not just taking this assessment so that we, know what type we are or what our talents are. We're focused on building up those talents so that they become strengths and applying them productively to our work and whatever our passions and dreams are.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I know the first time I took a personality assessment, it was a DISC assessment, and I'm now certified in DISC. But at the time, I really didn't put much stock in DISC or Strengths Finders or MBTI or True Colors or any of the other things that I'm certified in now, right? But back then when I took it, they turned me off because they talked about you need to focus on your strengths and stop stressing about your weaknesses or your opportunities, as some people might call them, right? And in my mind back then, well, no, I'm already very strong in a lot of areas. I need to fix my weaknesses. And I was spending so much energy really trying to fix me. rather than just saying, you know what, I've been gifted some pretty cool strengths. Let's go out there and do something great with those. So it took a little while to get through my thick noggin, but can you tell people a little bit more about the power of this focus on your strengths?
Well, really, JJ, it's a mindset shift. And like you said, it took a while to get through your noggin. I think that's normal. Um, you Weaknesses are there. We can't ignore them, but I don't believe in seeing weaknesses as something other than they are. But I do believe in managing weaknesses and not just focusing on them. When you really think about what you do well, you're going to be much more successful. I'll use myself as an example. Before I became a certified StrengthsFinder coach, and I took the StrengthsFinder assessment for the first time, I found out that my number one strength or number one talent theme was restorative. It means that I'm really good at solving problems, and that gives me energy. So your talents, your strengths are things that give you natural energy. I actually ended up leaving my current position I was in to go to another position that focused more on fixing things. I went to a quality management system position where I was a project manager there. So really all I was doing all day long was solving problems. And that really set me on a new course of my career. And I really think it was a pivotal moment in my professional life for me to say, okay, I do have weaknesses. I do have weaknesses that I need to manage, but this is telling me that I get energy and I'm really good at solving problems. So let me go to an environment where I can thrive. So that's the difference. When you're focused on managing your weaknesses all the time, you're not really focused on thriving. But when you really kind of lean into what you do naturally well, that's when you can really, thrive and go even further than you thought you could.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then you get the energy. There's one of my mentors likes to say, do the thing and then you get the energy to do the thing. Well, if all the things you're doing are at cross purposes with your personality and your suitability, then you're just expending so much energy and getting so frustrated that you can't get as far as you want. But when you're in that flow, it actually, I don't know for everybody else, but it actually makes it easier for me to let go of the things that I wish I was better at. And so, it makes it easier for me to delegate certain things to other folks, and it makes me easier to appreciate the strengths in others. And I'll admit, I still have a little bit of a hard time in that. It's easier with real estate because I'm clearly not a plumber. And even though I can paint, I'm not a painter. And there's a lot of things I can cobble together, but I'm not an expert. That part's easy. When it comes to business and personal life, sometimes it's really hard to let go. But the more I walk in my strengths, the more I'm able to let go and let somebody else walk in their strengths and add their value to my life.
And I can agree with that, and I see that also in my own life. Even though real estate, the property aspect of real estate is different, but when you're talking about like the business operations aspect, especially with building a brand, you know, me and my husband co-founded Chronicle Lodging and Events, and it's just a blessing that we have what I like to call complementary strengths. Like one of his top five is harmony, and that's probably like number 32 out of 34 on my list. So when it comes down to dealing with vendors, contractors, people we're collaborating with, he normally takes the lead to make sure everything, the conversations flow smoothly because I have much more of a hard hitting approach because in my top 10 is achiever and also responsibility. So I'm just always wanting to like make sure the job's getting done. But he's the type to really step back. He has he empathy, I think, is also in his top five. He's really like worried about how everyone's feeling about the conversation and the way things are going. So in the strengths world, we call that being a talent scout, where you can look and recognize strengths in your partner or your teammate that you don't necessarily have, and you can learn how to make those complementary.
That is so important. And I know that for a little while, I'm not going to say disrespectful to my husband because even when I've been frustrated with certain things, such as the length of time it takes to make a decision, I've tried, I say try because I know there's times I have failed at this, but I try to be very respectful and it was only been, and I'd say like the last 2 or 3 years that I really have an appreciation And it's crazy because I delve into all this stuff. Like I use all of these different things in my day-to-day interaction with clients, but just to see it play out in my life, when you have somebody in your life that's complementary, and this is not a dating show today, but when you have somebody in your life that's complementary and you can appreciate their strengths, then you're able to really work together in the flow. And I'm excited for y'all with this business. So now tell me, has event planning always been on your heart? Have you always been involved in hospitality?
So I haven't always been involved in hospitality, but I always have had a love for event planning or really just creating experiences for people. My husband has been in real estate since about 2007 with rentals and residential real estate, and he also became more involved or interested in event planning once we started seeing like how profitable wedding venues were, and how people of color were underrepresented, at least in our area, when it came to having larger event venues. But then we took, this sounds interesting, but I kind of got a word, a divine word. So we took a slightly different turn. We got interested in hotel investing. And so the lodging aspect of hospitality, and that kind of spun into this idea of doing like a soft launch with having a beach house in a popular area that we can kind of test the market. It will be, running like an Airbnb short-term vacation rental type property as kind of like our soft entrance into the hospitality field. Because while we're new to hospitality, we're not new. We have plenty of skills that are transferable from our, regular daily lives. My husband has a MBA degree. I have a doctorate in organization development. So we know how to make businesses run and make them run effectively. It's just more learning about the niches in hospitality and learning the language. But so far it's going really well. So we're excited.
Yeah, well, I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna have a new place to add to my list for our reconnect with yourself retreats. Once everything kind of clears up, I'm always trying to support businesses that are run by women and people of color. And this is not a, my our Building Wealth Together podcast. We serve all people, we welcome all people, all types of people. But one thing that's really been on my heart a lot over the last couple of years is, we can't just say we care. We've got to show we care. And one of the ways we show we care is by supporting businesses that otherwise may not have had the support, and that by supporting business owners that may not otherwise have had the support. And I know, being in the government for a while, that there's a lot of federal government support for minority businesses, whether those businesses are race or based or gender based or any other thing like that. But what happens in reality is a lot of times they're mentored or partnered with other mainstream companies, and then those companies bid on the contract, and then by time the money trickles down, that minority business that was used to get the contract ends up not being one of the ones that fulfills the contract. And so for me, it's like, okay, well, I can't change the world, but what I can do is, when I have the choice to support a minority business of excellence, I'm going to support the minority business of excellence. So I collect businesses. So I'm collecting your beach house.
I'd like to add
And
to that.
say
I'm
that again.
actually really glad you brought that up because we're coming to Hampton, Virginia in May 2021. And one of the things we're planning on doing, so the lodging aspect is primary, but then the events aspect is secondary, because we realize that there's kind of this gap right now because obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic. People aren't able to hold larger events. So we really wanted to have we wanted our visitors to have the option of partnering with us to plan micro events. So if you want, to plan a girls' weekend, we can have someone come in and do a wine tasting. We can have
Yeah.
someone come in and do, a chef's dinner, or someone come in and do a mini yoga retreat for you. But we're going to achieve this by partnering with Hampton local business owners that are women owned, minority owned, and veteran owned, so that we can use their services, because we also recognize that during this pandemic, a lot of the smaller businesses that have niche services like exercise, fitness, some restaurants, they're very hard hit and suffering during this time. So since we're, neither me and my husband are from Hampton, Virginia, but since we're coming into the community, to have our first property there, we want to also make sure we're giving back to the community by utilizing those local small businesses.
Well, I'm not from the Hampton area, but I tell you what, my ex-husband's first duty assignment was out there at Langley Air Force Base, and we had a raggedy little roach-infested apartment off of J. Clyde Morris. It was all we could afford. You could pull the carpet up, and you could look down and see the ground, and the crickets would come in, and we had the cardboard furniture that you can buy from Walmart. This now that's funny because I was talking the other day about cardboard furniture, and somebody said, where do you buy cardboard furniture? And I think she was trying to make fun of me. And I said, you get it out of the trash at Walmart, because when I got the divorce and I had $845,000 of debt, I didn't have money for furniture. So I went and got cardboard boxes, and we stacked those things, and I cut holes in them to make bookcases and stuff. I mean, we got that thing. I put that engineering degree to work, y'all. But when my ex-husband was stationed in Hampton, I had forgotten the first little apartment. We bought all these they're like little cardboard shelves that you could put together. But I didn't know, because I didn't grow up with roaches. I didn't know that the roaches love cardboard. And so that first night we threw all that stuff out, and we just had our stuff on the floor. And it took us about a year. It took us about a year to pay down enough debt to go get a better place. But so many good people made that time wonderful. So many good people, and so much support with Hampton Roads and all those other good organizations out there. So I'm excited for your success. And what I'm really excited about hearing your story is how you and your husband both have what you called, I think I heard you right, transferable skills.
Mhm.
And when it comes to real estate, whether somebody's investing in real estate because they want to profit from real estate, or whether they're investing in real estate because they want to do an ancillary business, kind of like what you're doing. A lot of times I hear people go on the late night TV that says, oh, make pennies, pay pennies on the dollar for this house, profit $100,000 on your first real estate transaction with absolutely zero experience. And when you dig into the stories of a lot of these people who are making $80,000 or $100,000 their first year in a new real estate venture, they usually have some kind of transferable skills. So they're either, they may not have invested in a property before, but they used to be a property appraiser, or they used to be, or they're a general contractor, or they have some industry knowledge that helps them. And what I like about what you just said is you said that you all know how to run a business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand that if you don't make a profit, the IRS calls that a hobby, not a business.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe somebody's out there with a dream, and they know they've got a talent for hospitality or something like that. How would they move forward if they don't necessarily have the business skill set?
Well, I'd say two things to that. So first, get your business acumen up. I mean, there's no way around it. I had to do it myself. Finances aren't my strong suit. They're my husband's strong suit, but I had to buckle down and really say, okay, teach me how you did this spreadsheet. What exactly is a pro forma? How do I do a year projection, for this B&B that we're about to launch? I just had to. There's so many free resources online that you can go and really, I always say there's, pending a few hardships, there's not a lot of excuses for someone to be unlearned these days, because, formal education will only get you so far. You still need to have that hustle about yourself and go out and seek the knowledge. And that leads me to my second point, which is, I've never been huge on the idea of mentoring. I always had a love-hate relationship with it, because just growing up, it was hard for me to identify mentors just because, of my situation. I moved around a lot, etc. But I've learned that mentoring can look like a lot of different things. And I, speaking of strengths earlier, both of us found, my husband and I, that it's very important to know, like I said, manage those weaknesses, but also admit to what you don't know and be comfortable with saying you don't know, because then you'll be more comfortable going to find the people who do know. So, I mean, I could get you in touch with people right now that will be in the hospitality industry, well-known people, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I know Amina. She just out of the blue contacted me one day to learn about hospitality. And I'm still good with those people and they still are there teaching me. And I even just started like in a mastermind to learn even more. So it's just, if you are lacking in something, you really have to have that humility to understand that you are lacking in that. And you have to have that hustle about yourself to go out and get that knowledge. Just like you want to go out and grab that property, want to go out and grab that piece of real estate, you need to go out and grab that knowledge too, because it's only going to help you in the.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And some of it's also on us to really carry ourselves with that humility and that excellence. And I had in the when our military family moved to Louisiana, I had done business in Virginia, not in the Hampton area, but up north, Northern Virginia. And we had I was stationed there. I launched my business. I would put something on Meetup. I would sell out of the classes, $99 to $500 a pop. People didn't even know who I was. They would just show up to the classes. So I had a very skewed perception of what it's like to succeed in business, because all I did was throw something out there and people would show up, right? And I would make money. But when I moved to Louisiana, Louisiana's a little bit different. It's more about who you know and who you're connected to, and what family you're from, and who's going to be seen at your event, or who can be, who wants to be seen and who are they going to see. And I didn't know any of that. So I beat my head against a wall for about a year. I opened up a little space in the mall, and we had people coming in for events, and we started a little church, and we used the events to draw people to the church. But it wasn't until one of my mentors, who has now since passed away, I didn't even know her. We had a walking group. She was from the DC area. I was from the DC area. The third lady from our group was from the DC area. And we just all wanted to, get some walking on and have a connection with people who weren't necessarily from Louisiana. See, the people that didn't come out right. I'm sorry, my Shreveport peeps, that did not come out right. Y'all know I got my foot in my mouth sometimes, but I have much love for the community. But we just wanted a taste of back home, and even though Miss Cheryl had grown up in Shreveport, she'd been in DC so long that Northern Virginia was home, right? And so we're walking along, and eventually she starts mentoring me on how to do business in Louisiana. And I never would have known those things, but I had to be receptive to it. And I had to be open and humble, like you were saying. And that this is going to show my vanity and my arrogance, but that was not something I was accustomed to doing. I was not accustomed to being humble about nothing. I was going to show you and put it in your face that I belong here, and I was going to get stuff done. And I had to really change my mind on that. One other thing that I wanted to highlight with your business is you guys found a way. You found a niche, and you found a way to take advantage of that. And now you're going to be launching this B&B that's going to be this event center, this chain. Like, I can see it out there, like, and when I think about what I want, I've known for years that I wanted to have a convention center. My church has a big annual conference. I saw another church's convention center that they used for a lot of their big General Assembly type meetings. And I was like, I want that. I mean, and it's been 20 years that I was like, I want that. And now I want it to be a conference and resort center, right? Like, I want the spas and all that stuff. And I think about, sometimes I think about who am I to say this is what I want, you know? But then I look at the journey and I'm like, well, why can't I have that? I've been doing all these other things. That's just the next step, is buying a little bit, buying this, buying that, buying that. And it's very, very interesting that when you begin to visualize, things begin to come. Because I didn't want to take on any debt. For those of you who are new to Building Wealth Together, I teach investing in real estate without taking on extra debt. And I had somebody give me a 5,000 square foot event center. They were like, well, it was a church that we were going to convert into an event center. And I ended up not taking it just because we moved from Louisiana to Texas. But we were in there renovating and cleaning. I was so excited. I was like, they practically gave it to us. There was like maybe 2 or 3 years left on the payments, and they were older and they just couldn't do it anymore. And I thought, well, Lord, why would you have me go through all of that if I wasn't going to end up with the center? Because it was huge and it was perfect for what I wanted to do. And it was right by Southern University, Southern Shreveport. And he says, so you would know that you can do it, so that you would never have to worry about the how, that you would just pursue the dream and let God work out the how. And I was like, oh, I was like, it's happening. It's happening. All right. So now when it comes to transitioning and taking your skills in one area, like business and things like that, and transitioning that towards real estate or towards event planning, or even, whatever you feel comfortable talking about, even your coaching business, what is a step someone can use to overcome that fear of putting themselves out there and being worried that nobody's going to buy? Like you said, even in COVID, wedding venues are still doing well, right? But there's a fear there. I'm going to put myself out, and what if nobody responds, and what if nobody buys, and what can somebody do to push themselves past that?
Well, I'm probably like the queen what ifer. I drive my friends and family crazy because I always have like these grand ideas and it's right before launch and I'm like, what if no one books it? What if this happens? And so for me, prayer has been crucial. If you are a spiritual person, I definitely suggest getting quiet with your spiritual guide and just really, pouring all your dreams into the open. My husband's big on manifestation as well. He's really big on like visualizing things. So I'm becoming better at manifestation. But because I'm a Virgo, I'm big into astrology. So I know like it's we need plans and we need to be able to see stuff. And I've had this conversation with God a lot. I'm like, I know I'm supposed to wait for you to just do your thing, but you know how I am. So help me out a little. So what I do is I do a whole lot of little tests and pilots. Even if people don't know I'm doing like tests and pilots, that's what I'm doing. Like I'm just like putting a little taste out there and I'm like, okay, what's happening? Because when I first started on this journey, I have to admit, it just came to me one day and I'm like, okay, my husband's gonna think I'm crazy because I'm talking about buying hotels, becoming hoteliers. Like he's gonna think I'm insane because we know each other 5 years and I've never mentioned this before. But thinking back on it, JJ, I've always had a love for hotels. Since I was a little girl, it was all about hotels. Whenever we would go, out of town on family vacations, I was the one wandering around the hotel, looking at things that would seem mundane to other people, admiring the lobbies, looking at the finishing touches, the doorknobs. Let me see how this bathroom set up. Since I was little, and that day when I kind of got this divine message, like you need to go in this direction, it kind of like made sense. When I tell you before I even was interested in lodging and hotels and hospitality, that I would have daydreams that someone I knew owned a hotel. I would never be the someone in the daydreams, but like just like someone I knew, like my sister went to high school with someone who owns a hotel in Las Vegas, and I would like think a lot about that person, like, oh, wonder how he did that before it came to me like you need to be doing this. So since that happened, because it was not something that always was so clear, like with some people, I'm like, all right, I need to find a way to become comfortable with this and to like really own it and get over like this imposter syndrome. Like, because I have gotten a few side eyes, like, who are you coming into this industry? We're just meeting you. Like, what is happening? So I just have to put a lot of tests out there. And I've been really blessed and fortunate to meet some very welcoming people in the hospitality industry and really welcoming, people of color, people like me who have taken me under their wing and said, you should try this or don't try that. Or this is what happened when I first came in and it didn't go well. So you probably want to steer away from that. And so I take all that information I'm getting and I just put out little tests like, and if things don't go well with my test, I say, okay, that's fine. Failure is just a stepping block because I have a theory that you can only fail but so many times before you eventually succeed. So I'm like, all right, that didn't work. But what I've been finding over the past about year and a half that we've really been working on the hotel investing in the B&B and everything is when I put my test out there, it works. Like it's well received. And I take that as information that I'm doing what I was called to do and I'm on the path that I was called to be on. And it's still very uncomfortable. Like I had a call with one of our consultants last week and I just was, to be honest, I just wasn't in the mood to be this hospitality person. I'm like, what, in my head, I'm just like, what did I even do? You know, I have a nice 9 to 5. Why am I even worried about this? Like, I could just go back to my nice normal life and forget all about this. But she just kept pushing and pushing. And she was just like, no, you're going to do that. And I told you to do that. And you need to focus. And it's what I needed at the time, because God sends people like that to remind you, like, this is bigger than you. You were called to do this. So if you give up now, or if you just act indifferent, things are actually going to be worse for you, because you're not living in your purpose and you're not doing what you were called to do. And I get a little choked up thinking about it, because it's not something that anyone in my family, like, no one in my family would say, oh, Amina will own a hotel one day, or Amina will have, a chain of bed and breakfast or inns. Like, they knew that whatever I do, I would likely be successful, because I'm just that type of person that never quits. But no one would have said, like, I would be in this specific industry. And now when I tell my family and friends, they're like, that makes so much sense. Or I could totally see you doing that. And I tell them, like, about the idea, because we are naming all of our properties after historical Black figures, and we really want to create spaces where traditionally marginalized people can feel comfortable and learn about the local history in the area. And when I tell them, I just received so many messages like, I love what y'all are doing. This is awesome. We need more of this. Because there's some of that in this country, but there's not a lot of it.
Not enough, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
not enough. Yeah. So it's been a blessing to receive positive feedback. I mean, every day is not great. We're dealing for our first property, we're dealing with a new construction. Um, and there's been some setbacks, just because it's a new construction, but at the same time, it's like, how exciting that when we open this, like, our first people who book in May, they can say they were the first people in, like, to ever stay there. So I think that's cool. And then you just find yourself doing weird things. Like, I've been so stressed getting this property ready, and then my husband came in the other day and he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm looking, at some houses in Maryland for our second property. It's like, when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, it's like your mind just won't let you quit. As improbable, like you said, as improbable as it seems, or, when it seems like you were supposed to do something, but then it didn't work out, you still have to believe you're on the right path.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you'd have told me 10 years ago that I'd have a 3,000 square foot place in the Pierre Bossier Mall where I'm holding all these classes and conferences and all these things, I would have laughed at you. Not only the way we structured is we had the church in the back half, and we had the community center in the front half. And if you'd have told me I was going to do that and B, going to like it, I would have laughed at you, because I didn't think that was my thing. I always wanted to have a conference center. Don't get me wrong, because I wanted to have a place for my people to come. I wanted hairdressers that had my music playing in it. I wanted a spa with my stuff in it. Like, I wanted it to be catered to me. Like, even if I had to pay for it, I wanted me a space that I could be me and have my church people. We could all be us, right? And I know that sounds a little silly now, but it's so much bigger than that now. Because even in that little 3,000 square foot, well, it's not little, it was huge compared to what I got it for. Even in that space, and what we would have been able to do with the second space, there was so much community empowerment. That's really, like you said, it's bigger than any one of us. And when we begin to take that first step, then things begin to change, and we begin to see this domino effect, or not necessarily domino effect. What do they call it? The butterfly effect, where, just the flapping of the butterfly's wings here has a huge effect on the weather there. And the little bit of good that I can do, and the little bit of good that you can do, and the changes we can make in the community, those ripple effects of inspiration can change generations. And it's just so exciting to watch. And so one of the things that I want to talk about real quick before we close is, and that is how to find somebody that can help you, kind of gather what you want to do. Because I know sometimes you just don't know until you get into it. And I've planned enough events and written enough, reviewed enough food and beverage order contracts that I'm pretty sure that that this is a route that I definitely want to do later. But I remember a time where I wanted to have, and I still do, when we open our place up here, it'll be a conference center with a coffee shop. But I always thought I would love to run a coffee shop. And then my friend had a coffee shop in Louisiana, and I was in there enough to see enough to say, you know what, we will lease the space We will lease the space to a coffee vendor, and I will not be running a kitchen. We will lease the space to up and coming chefs. So it'll be a win-win, right? Like emerging vendors can have a place to start their business and bring their wares. And I'm not, not the kid. Nope, not me. But everybody but if somebody doesn't really know, and they don't have the experience to know if this really is in their sweet spot, do you have any recommendations of like associations they could look into with regards to hotels, or how they would, maybe if not an association, maybe approach somebody who runs a hotel? How would they do that?
Yeah,
How
so I
would they
have a
find that person, and how would they approach them?
yeah, well, I have a couple of things there. So, the thing I love about real estate, whether it's investing in residential or especially when thinking about hotels, is that by the threshold to invest with a partner with a collaborative. Let me start over. The threshold to invest with a collaborative group can be pretty affordable. Sometimes it can be as low as $25,000. And if put on your charisma and your persuasive skills, there are ways to really build those relationships with the sponsoring partners, and you can actually invest in a hotel deal, but also as an investor you're privy to certain information. So if you're wondering if owning a hotel is for you someday, it's good to start out by investing. It can be a low threshold, and you'll also start getting that information. You'll have monthly or quarterly meetings with the sponsor of the hotel deal, the general manager. You'll be able to soak up the information from the general manager. You'll learn about the figures and the budgets and everything involved with hotel management and hotel ownership. You'll be able to pick the general manager's brain, because now you have a business relationship with that person. And while there are people out there that will give you plenty of information for free without you being an investor with them, we also have to understand that it is a business. And when you enter into a business relationship with someone, there's also a new level of partnership. They look at you as not just someone who, they're giving advice to, but actually as a partner, and possibly even someone that they could, partner on a deal with someday. So that's a really good way to get information. For me, there were three people that have been critical to my journey of learning more about hotel investing. So that's Devon Reeves of Devon Group, and she also is a co-founder of Epic Collective. That's Omari Head, who works for Paramount Lodging Advisors. He's a hotel broker, and Tracy Prigmore, who also owns a company helping women get into hotel ownership. And if you're looking for more of, if you don't want to do that one-on-one approach at first, you can also look into NABHOOD, which is the National Association for Black Hotel Owners, Operators, and Developers.
See, everywhere I go, Sherman Ragland was right. There is an association for everything.
There is. There is.
Well, this has been really great, Dr. Amina. Let me just let everybody know, or you can let everybody know, you've got a free offer for everybody today, a free Strengths Finder discovery call. I'll go ahead and post that link in the show notes.
You can find me on Instagram at Amina Gilyard James, and then on Instagram at Chronicle and Chill. So Chronicle,
I love that.
And events is also, obviously the company. So we welcome everybody, but I'm a millennial. So of course, the first thing I thought of was Chronicle and Chill, visit our properties, chill. And regarding the freebie, as we talked earlier, in any business venture that you have or you're thinking about going into, it's really important to have that foundation to start off and really understand your strengths and, what will lend itself well to your new business ventures. So that's, I think, a strengths discovery call is a good place for anyone to start who's thinking about getting into a new venture.
Yep. And I'm a big fan of Strengths Finders. So thank you so much, Dr. Amina, for being on with us today. Don't forget to send me your price sheet once you get things locked down, because sometime in July, I'm looking at making a trip on the East, and I want to make it a business trip so we can Plan me a conference out there. That will work even better. A little retreat, a little something, something. We'll do something, right? But this has been great. Thank you so much for being on with us today. Y'all, make sure you take advantage of this offer to get your Strength Finder Discovery Call, because you really want to flow in your strengths, and you got to stop beating your head. And I know not everybody is. I know we got a lot of high performers there. You're in your flow. You've made a lot of the changes. You've attended the classes, but I know somebody is listening to me today. You've been beating your head against the wall, trying so hard to prove yourself to people who aren't even loving you or interested in what you have to offer. But if you can switch your flow to your strengths, you will find that you begin to flow more easily. You'll find that you begin to walk in your abundance and in your power, and you will find that things begin to just open, because instead of walking in the energy of the negative and, oh, I can't do this, I can't do this, now you start walking in the energy of what I can do and where I'm gifted and what makes me feel good. And remember what we always say: when we walk in that energy of abundance, we attract others who resonate with that energy, and then they want to help us, and then we get more energy. It's such a great cycle, y'all. All right, I'm JJ Conway. I want to thank you guys for being here today on our Wealth Building Wednesday. Y'all take care and be blessed. Love the podcast? Be sure to like, subscribe, and forward to 3 friends. You can ask a question or take a life-changing class at buildingwealthtogether.com. Now, go walk in abundance and leave a legacy.